Hello, I'm Jason, the Philosophy Man, and this is a video about philosophy assemblies. Philosophy assemblies are a great way of getting the whole school involved in P4C, but how are they different to ordinary assemblies? Well, in an ordinary assembly, they're quite formal occasions. You might have an act of worship, you might have an inspiring story. It's quite sort of come in quietly and listen, not necessarily as much participation other than perhaps in the singing of a hymn, which is itself rather formal. But in a philosophy assembly, you want people to feel that it's a time to talk and to have the clash of ideas and different opinions and that sort of thing. So it's a very, very different vibe. How can you signal that vibe to the children? Well, for a start, you might want to consider not having as big a group as you normally do. If you have the whole of Key Stage 2 or the entire school squeezed into a hall, then when they start talking to each other in pairs about a question, that's going to be an awful lot of noise and it might just get a little bit too hectic for you to get the best out of it. So consider maybe changing the time so you can have half of Key Stage 2 in there, maybe a couple of year groups at a time, not quite as many people as you normally would, and you might find you get more value out of your philosophy assemblies that way. Then you've got the physical arrangement. Now, you might have a stimulus that you want to show them, a video or what have you, but if you then leave the kids sat in rows facing you, then if someone at the front makes a point, everyone behind them has got to listen to the back of their head. That's quite difficult to do, and it's not terribly productive. So ideally, you'd get them arranged in like a multi-layered horseshoe around the edges of the room, so they can turn and face the projector at the beginning, face you at the beginning, but then they are facing one another. Or if you can't do that, then have them all face the front to begin with, and then once you get the discussion started, get the front half of the room to turn round and face the back half, and you sit in the side, in the sort of speaker's chair position between those two groups of children facing each other. Makes them more likely to look to one another, they're talking to each other and not talking to you, and it also lessens the formality and creates a different sense of occasion. So that's the physical side of it. Then, next piece of advice is start silly, to counteract that sort of rather overwhelming feeling that there's loads and loads of people here and the general seriousness of an assembly situation. Start with some sort of silly random question like, would an octopus be better off riding a bicycle or a skateboard? Or what would you serve an alien if an alien came to dinner? Something not connected with what you're going to do, just a bit of fun to get every voice in the room going and signal that it's okay for you to talk in this setting. I also often use as my signal for getting people quiet a Mexican Shush, where I will say, imagine I've got a bottle of fizzy drink. When I go shh, like that, like the noise that a fizzy drink bottle makes when you open it, I want you all to do the same and then be quiet. So I go shh, they all go shh, and that's how we signal quiet. You can, of course, use the stand up, hands up thing, but I always find it very difficult to do that without feeling as if I look cross. So up to you. It's another slightly light-hearted way of doing things which sets the vibe as being different to a formal assembly. Then the most important thing is your choice of stimulus. You want to avoid anything that is preachy. So my unfavourite assembly story is the story of the long spoons. Somebody goes down to hell, and hell doesn't look so bad because actually there are lots of banquet tables spread with the most wonderful food, but the damned are still looking very, very unhappy because as well as the wonderful food, there is this strange outsized cutlery, these enormously long spoons, so that as they try and scoop up the food and feed themselves, the spoon goes out past their ear, and thus they are still starving. Then the story progresses up to heaven, where there is the same fantastic spread of food, the same sadistic cutlery, but everybody is happy because, of course, they are taking the food and sharing with one another. Never really liked that story, partly because I always thought, well, if you were damned, you're probably in hell for something worse than bad table manners, so you just scoop up the food, nom, 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 and have as much as you liked. But also, it's a preachy story. It tells you to be nice about the nice thing which is sharing. It wouldn't be nice if everybody shared. It's preachy and it doesn't promote thinking because you are telling them what to think, whereas what you should be doing is just giving them something to think about. And the other thing with it is it doesn't reflect historical circumstances. Most places in the world, some people own all the spoons and they're not sharing. Anyway, avoid preaching, start silly, and try and arrange the room so that people are facing each other and can talk to one another instead of looking to you. That's how to set the philosophy assembly vibe. In the next video, we'll look at what makes for a good stimulus for a philosophy assembly.